We have some breaking news for you, and it's some sad news. Soccer legend Pele has died at the age of 82. That is according to a statement released now by his family. They added, "Everything that we are is always thanks to you. We love you infinitely. Rest in peace." The Brazilian star's health had been deteriorating in recent days as he continued his battle with cancer. Don Riddell has more on Pele's life and his incredible legacy.
When the world knows you by just one name, you have truly succeeded. Pele is regarded by many as the greatest footballer of all time. His humble demeanor and generous spirit have guaranteed his legacy as a global icon.
This is a big responsibility, you know. I feel very comfortable because something I cannot answer was why God gave me this, this gift. This was a gift from God, and I try to be in my best. I try to respect people. I try to prepare myself. I try to be always in good shape. The most important, respect people.
Raised in the slums of Sao Paulo in the 1940s, Edson Arantes de Nascimento discovered football at a young age. He made his debut for Santos at the age of just 16, and within a year he was scoring goals for the Brazilian national team. By this time he was better known by his nickname, Pele, and in 1958, at 17, he became the youngest man to play in a World Cup final, scoring twice as Brazil beat Sweden. It was the first of 3 world titles he'd helped win for his country. He electrified audiences with his fancy footwork and ability to score seemingly impossible goals, so it was something of a disappointment that his 1000th goal was a penalty.
A friend of mine, he's a comic guy in Brazil. He say, "Listen, God stopped the game because everyone has to see your 1000 goal." That's the reason it was the penalty kick.
After his goal, the game against Vasco da Gama was stopped for several minutes to celebrate his landmark achievement. In 1967, Pele learned that he and his team had the power to stop other things too, when their visit to Nigeria prompted warring factions to call a 48-hour ceasefire in the country's civil war.
We stopped war because the people are so crazy for football. They love football. They stopped the war to see Santos play in Africa. This is a fantastic, it's something you cannot explain.
By the time Pele retired as a footballer in 1977, playing his final years for the Cosmos in New York, he'd amassed a career total of 1,281 goals. For Pele, that was half a lifetime ago, but his infectious love of the game ensured that he remained relevant. He served as a UN ambassador for ecology and the environment. He rubbed shoulders with state leaders all over the world, and he received an honorary knighthood from Queen Elizabeth in 1997. And who could forget his appearance in the cult movie Escape to Victory?
Go. After giving me ball, here I do these, go. Easy.
When he starred alongside Michael Caine and Sylvester Stallone, playing a prisoner of war who scored a spectacular, morale-boosting goal in a game against the Germans.
I think, first of all, is a gift from God. Second, I think it was a lot of hard work and training. And I have to say thanks to God, because my father was a football player, was a center forward. And then my father was a very, perfectionist, And then everything who I used to do, I tried to do, he used to say, "Listen, you must to be better than that."
He's always been a global icon, but in his native Brazil, he'll always be regarded as a national treasure. His passing is cause for national mourning, and as he so humorously put it himself, there will never be another Pele.
To be the new Pele would be very difficult, because my mother and my father, they closed the machine.
What an incredible life player and person. That was CNN's Don Riddell. Joining us now on the phone is Chris Whittingham, soccer analyst and commentator. First to you about the impact of Pele. Everyone knows his name. Even if you're not a sports fan, he is an icon in his own right.
No question. I think when you look at the history of the sport in this country, I think you look at, for example, in the United States, he comes to play for the New York Cosmos in the mid-1970s. And as a result, his name almost becomes synonymous with this sport because it was not terribly popular for several years. If you said the word soccer or even the world's football, you would just sort of say Pele. That was the first name. And you would say it in a variety of ways, right? Because him being from Brazil, it was sort of said in a variety, Pele. And so you hear this sort of wide variety of his notoriety within the game, and he is sort of the first name that comes up to many, many generations of Americans, and obviously the world over, is known as being someone who is so influential in this sport, has, championed the sport in Brazil and around the world. A three-time World Cup winner, remains the only three-time World Cup winner. We just celebrated Lionel Messi for winning one. I think Pele kind of got left behind a little bit in the greatest of all time discussion because he's won three. Just because he did it in black and white television doesn't mean that he is not one of the greatest figures in the history of this game.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the comparisons that will certainly be made, but he had 1,281 goals in his lifetime. You talked about him winning 3 World Cups. One of the stories that I had heard about him and that always struck me was that during 1967, there were factions that were fighting a civil war in Nigeria, and this is the power of Pele. They agreed, the two sides fighting agreed to a ceasefire so that he could play an exhibition match in Nigeria. It just goes to show you the power this man had to bring people together. He literally stopped the fighting so that he could just come and play and give people relief. Do you have any stories that you particularly like to remember about Pele?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just sort of his impact on the sport in the United States. I don't think it can be understated. You talk to people who are agnostic to soccer in the United States, and even they, for a brief moment in time in the mid-1970s when he played for the New York Cosmos, and like you say, it's just sort of his ability to present that impact almost no matter where he is. Because it's very easy to suggest global celebrity now, right? I mean, we have social media, we have all these abilities to sort of translate celebrity. But I think when you look at where the globe was back then, he wins World Cup in 1958 and again in 1962. And in 1958, arrived to the Brazil squad as a 17-year-old and lit up that World Cup and scored a goal in the final against Sweden. And he, from there, becomes this one word that is synonymous with sport and, like you say, almost with diplomacy in a weird way. He can go any single place in the world and stop traffic and stop what was going on. I remember growing up and hearing this man's name, and it was like, it was vaunted. It was laudable. It was something that was synonymous with something that we can't even access because it came from a different time. And yeah, to me, the way that he came to the United States and changed the way that Americans viewed soccer was just sort of incredible. And I think laid some of the groundwork for what we see today with Major League Soccer, with a lot of the way that the sport has grown. I think that period in the 1970s when a lot of big soccer stars headlined by Pele came over was a huge part of it.
He was a beautiful player in the beautiful game, but also a beautiful spirit, and he did a lot after soccer. And the one thing that I think we all remember, anyone who has seen video of Pele playing or got to see him in person, it is that famous bicycle kick. He made that famous, and you now see players doing it as well, but an incredible athlete and person. And I do just want to end here with what his name really is. People called him Pele, but actually his official name is Edson Arantes de Nascimento. We all knew him as Pele. He is now gone from this earth, but his memory remains. Thank you so much, Chris Whittingham.
Thank you.